After being the absolute laughingstock of the rap world for a few days, Drake responded to Kendrick Lamar's Absolute Giant in Meet the Grams and the banger of Not Like Us with a new cut title, The Heart, Part 6. And while just the title alone when Kendrick took over Drake's AM/PM series, Drake returned and took over his Heart series, and it was great when you look at the whole song. This is as good as when you sit down and digest what Drake had to say. Here it's clear that, for the first time in this issue, one of these titans simply missed the mark completely. So when it comes to the sixth part, it's not even really a diss track, but rather a defensive track. It's after Kendrick made accusations that Drake was hiding a daughter in Meet the Grams, and that he and OIO are joining the ranks of people like Dan Schneider and Diddy. People have been clowning Drake and reciting the crazy quotes Kendrick dropped in his last songs. And in an effort to stop this attack, Drake has come up with a response where he tries to clear his name from all these quite serious accusations and throw it all back at Kendrick. And while the menacing beat that samples Aretha Franklin and Drake's direct delivery would make you think he's about to do just that when you hear his lyrical performance here, all he ended up doing is looking much worse than ever. The first set of bars on this track are pretty decent and definitely set some solid groundwork for Drake to do damage. But when he tries to make his first massive revelation here, he says that he and his team set up Kendrick and tricked him into believing he had an 11-year-old daughter he was hiding, making Lamar look like a complete fool in this supposed gotcha moment. And even if this were true, this would completely alter everything when we look at the evidence and everything we know so far. This makes absolutely no sense, and let me tell you why. First off, for Drake to say that Kendrick gets his clown stories and then contradicts himself by saying he and his team gave him the story no longer makes sense. But beyond these lines, they simply conflict with each other. Drake's knee-jerk reaction when Kendrick said he had a daughter was to post an Instagram story laughing about it. And if it were true that Kendrick was fooled, if Drake were the true mastermind he claimed to be, he would have the receipts to prove they got Kendrick, or he would have had them, ready to delve into all of this from the beginning, but fails to do so. After Drake's fans on social media used this theory to apparently deal with the beef, the grams, to be honest, it seems like Drake simply picked this up from what everyone else was saying, because without any evidence and the fact that Drake didn't have this response right on camera, when you think about it a little and wonder why Drake would let all this bad press run around his name for days, I think anyone can realize that this is a bold-faced lie. And beyond this, he says that the items stolen from him and that Kendrick posted were also part of this elaborate setup, and that they were part of a big joke, and this just makes things seem even more ridiculous. Drake insists on the fact that there was this joke in this setup, but doesn't explain what it meant or what it was overall, while Drake tries to sell us the idea that this was his big plan all along after the guy made a whole short film for his music video about family matters and didn't decide to document any of these parts that apparently would have backed all this up. It just shows that Drake is incredibly unintelligent, or he's simply the biggest liar at the moment, and maybe Drake is just a fool, because as this song progresses, he tries to have another massive gotcha moment for Kendrick while addressing the major accusations about being really creepy with girls while dressing Kendrick's mother with the Mr. Moral, Sober Eyes track in the mix, and tries to turn Kendrick's pain into a weapon by saying that the reason Lamar walks with these accusations is because he himself was a victim of the same thing as a child, which already trying to use someone to go through something so traumatic is really strange, and something horrible to do. But beyond this, the song Mother I Sober is not about Kendrick being a victim, but actually about Lamar's own mother, whose pain and experience made him think that the same horror his son went through she also went through, when you understand. This also makes Drake's claims that Kendrick didn't fact-check and didn't fully understand feel even more half-baked, because when you break it down, everything Drake has said so far in this track is either so outrageous without any evidence, or he's simply completely wrong about what's supposed to be the framework backing up this same song. And to somehow make things even worse, the other main thing Drake does to address the really bad accusations about him and the girls is to say that he predicted this was the angle Kendrick was going to take. First off, it's supposed to be some kind of flex that the image you've portrayed over the years would allow someone to even attack you for this, and it just keeps plummeting from here in self-defense. Drake says he's too famous, are the things Kendrick has suggested, and that again there have been so many times in this conflict where Drake says things that just don't make any sense or align with anything else happening in the reality we all live in, because, as we've seen over the years, especially recently, many of the world's most famous and wealthy people have been exposed for what you're defending against. So trying to shut this down in this way is really ridiculous for how it simply ignores any form of logic. And if you didn't think this defense could get any worse, it somehow gets even worse when Drake tries to mock Kendrick and protect himself by saying he's only messing with girls like his wife Whitney and not Millie Bobby Brown. Kendrick never said anything about Millie Bobby Brown. So once again, Drake is really shooting himself in the foot here at this point. He's really on that level. Now Drake also rehashes the same accusations he made in Family Matters, which is a good tactic to make Kendrick address them directly, but with many more straight-up and horrible lines, like the sustained bar that tries to respond to a minor line from Kendrick and just completely misses the point. Overall, it makes this track increasingly difficult to listen to, and as it nears the end, it seems like Drake is completely trampling over Kendrick and waving the white flag saying he's done with this, while Drake may be trying to convince people to gaslight into saying he had a genuine plan. Humiliated, Kendrick defended his honor. Actually, when you read this song and all its core ideas, it really seems like Drake released a PR song that tries to mitigate the damage Kendrick has created around his name and overall, even if the hip-hop community and many others now see Drake in a different light. Forever, at least his own fans will still believe that Drake has played well throughout this whole affair, and that he's coming out of the stage in general despite the Hard Part 6 being a song that sounds good aesthetically when you analyze this attack plan and see how it's a glorified PR statement that the internet wrote to defend Drake. I don't even know how someone who proved to be so bad. At the beginning of this issue, I thought it was a good idea to release this song. Clearly it was very rushed and, from the inconsistent writing to the things Drake says, you can see that his behavior really changed and that, admit it or not, he's completely compromised and given in to his strategy and throughout his bravery, as Kendrick has proven to be more and more a force he can't handle. So at this point all we can do is see how Kendrick Lamar will respond to this track and, ultimately, witness how this fight will end once and for all. And with all that said, let me know your opinion on the Hard Part 6. Am I being too harsh on it? Or is this song as terrible as I'm saying? Subscribe if you think Drake's career is dead. See you soon, my legend.